Hey, good morning, fellow nurses. Jessica Smith, RN coach, coming at you today. And I'm so excited to introduce you to Lori Delfosse. She is a fellow nurse of 30 years, and we're going to get to introduce her as well as her bouncing back from burnout story. I know that you will find so much inspiration in her story, and I hope you enjoy our interview. So, Lori, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you very much for doing this, sharing other nurses' stories. I mean, it's so important that we have all of us have incredible stories. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. You're brilliant. Your brilliance in doing this is amazing, and we have over millions of nurses in the United States. So it's great to be able to share my story and hear other people's stories and how they're living, how they're coping, how they're handling the healthcare system. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I received that very much. Thank you. And so you've been a nurse for 30 years. So tell us about why you decided to become a nurse in the first place.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been 30 years, and really, I was in my business major initially, and then I started the science classes. I loved anatomy, physiology. I loved chemistry. And I just started to shift, and it was like, well, what can I do in science with the sciences rather than business? And well, it's kind of cool because I still have a little bit of business background, which is important for my later part of my story. But really, I was motivated by the sciences, and I really did have this wanting to take care of others. I was the first girl in my family born. I had two older brothers. It was me, and then I had three siblings. So I was really like that, the female caretaker of my siblings. And so I think I have, had some of that. And but really, it was a fascination with the sciences that just pulled me in. And then as a nurse, in nursing school, I started, I took the nutrition class. I loved the chemistry and pharmacology. It was just everything fell into place, and it just made sense. That was really why I stepped into that nursing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then yeah. So then I finished my degree. I went to UW-Milwaukee, and I finished the degree in 6 years. I worked for a company initially, and they paid for most of my schooling. So, and then I had stocks in the company. So it was just perfect. They put me through the rest of my nursing school and my clinicals. I didn't have to work. I worked a little bit in the local ER. And, just nursing has been, and healthcare had been a great, launch for my career. So that's where I am, and then there's more to share.
Well, perfect. So that's so fascinating. I love that you were in business and you were so excited about the sciences that it helped change that course. And then it also, sort of let you express that part of yourself that likes to give care and inspire health in others. So that's very cool. I love that. So yeah, let's fast forward in that career to a point when you started feeling symptoms of burnout. Share that story with us.
Well, yeah, and Jessica, interestingly, it happened pretty quickly. I've been a pediatric. Right out of college, I got a position at our children's hospital in Wisconsin, and I worked on the intermediate ICU with 5 other new grads. So there were 6 of us stepping out of nursing school right onto an intermediate ICU, and literally blew us all out of the water. And by a year later, all 6 of us were gone. For me, right away, I noticed it was the complexities really for new grads. Just to be honest, in my opinion, it just wasn't an appropriate place for new grads to step in. But the one thing too was the shift changes. I mean, 1 week I'm working 12-hour shifts, right? And they got me all changed. I'm doing 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm doing 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. I mean, and then 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. In 1 week, I had like 3 different shifts. I was so sick a lot. I would say the first 6 months I was sick. I mean, that typically does happen when you're in pediatrics because you're exposed to a lot of communicable stuff. But literally, it was hard to get up in the morning. And the burnout, especially after my shifts, after I got done working, I did not want to talk to a soul. So I was single at the time, and and it just really, I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I've been taking care of people all day, 12 hours. I'm exhausted. I got to plan and get ready for my next, and I was even pulling some, and then we also had we had 8-hour shifts too. So there was a couple times I'm pulling 14-hour shifts, 16-hour, two double, a double. So it was just, it just wasn't not healthy, not healthy at all. So one of the things that was really early on, like I said, I knew that I wasn't really as attentive as my patients deserved. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was coping. I was short-tempered towards myself and, like on the edge of being agitated. And I'm like, and then there were things I missed. There were drug mistakes. There were things I missed. What was, even on our floor, in our pediatrics, we had, especially with narcotics, with pain management for kids, we had another nurse always spot check our meds that we drew up. This was before they had per unit medications that come up to the floor with a patient name, right? We were just like pulling right out of the bottle, and and even the second nurse, she's checking what I'm drawing up, and she missed the mistake too. So, so all of us were just so extremely exhausted. It was definitely affecting patient safety, and also, my own safety. I even had a situation where, because of the state that we were in, we even had, I had one doctor push me one time. It was just over the top. So I got out within a year of hands-on in the hospital setting, and I moved into home care, much more manageable, much more calm, still get to apply sciences, dealing with a lot more psychosocial things in the homes. So definitely moved into that arena for several years.
Gotcha. What an interesting start. And I feel like this story has so many nuggets of wisdom, especially for new grads. So what I'm hearing you say is that as a new grad, you switched your schedule around all the time. You were in a unit that was definitely quite a bit above your current skills level, and you were surrounded by new grads. So there wasn't a lot of support for you. And I feel like there's a double lesson in this story. And the first part of that lesson is, as a new grad, when you are choosing where to go with your career and where to start, it is fun, it is exciting, it is tempting to start in those higher acuity settings. I know that we've hired quite a few new grads in our ER in the past, and a lot of those new grads do best when they have like paramedic experience and they've been medics and they've been running ambulance calls, that kind of thing, before they step into the ER. So I think it's really valuable to be honest with yourself as a new grad about what your level of experience is. And I'm definitely not discouraging you from challenging yourself, because by all means, there is opportunity to learn and to grow in those environments. But when you're considering those kind of environments, I also really encourage you to look at the organizational structure. What support is there for you to succeed in those kind of environments? Because it is quite a bit above your skills level, and you need to make sure that you have a preceptor and a mentor and an educator that's supporting you step by step, and that your management is setting up your schedule so that you're not dying of exhaust from flipping shifts all the time to the point where you can't even, open your mind to something new. You're just drowning and trying to keep your head above water. And so really from an organizational standpoint, I think that's a really good lesson for nurse managers and educators too, to really pay attention to those new grads and make sure that you're setting them up for success from the very beginning, because it's such a shame that you work so hard in nursing school only to just be completely drowning your first year, to the point where you're making medication errors and your health is suffering and there's actual physical violence at work. Like, I think that's such an incredible story, and there's so many valuable lessons there. So the one thing I really want to leave our fellow nurses with, especially our new grads, are those points. Make sure that you have the support within the organization to really help grow you, and make sure you're not stepping into an environment where you're surrounded by new grads and you're going to be left to drown. So really put that in your pocket as far as like your decision making when you're choosing a new place to go. So Lori, what really was your breaking point in all of that, and what made you sort of switch gears, and how did you choose home care?
Okay, yeah, it really, that one medication error was what really, that was, the bullet between the eyes, really. Yeah. I was really I was not in the right place for myself. And really, and I had to, explore, like, okay, is this failure that I couldn't do it? Is this failure that I feel I need to, dial down? And, I went back to this, that the patients and the families deserve better, and they deserve safety. And I wasn't at the skill set to be able to provide that. So really it was my patients and my heart saying, Lori, this is just not the right place. It really was not the right time. Maybe later on it could have been the right place, but it just wasn't the right time. Right. Now, what was kind of cool out of that, on the intermediate ICU unit, we had a lot of the ventilator kids, kids that were born and they were still on ventilators and they had been in the hospital for a year. So we had these chronic ventilator kids, and so I would help transition them to home care. So that's how I got introduced to home care. And then I started talking with the staff and management at home care. And actually, one of the boys that went home, he'd been in the hospital for a year and a half. And so when we transitioned him home, I got to be his home care nurse in the transition. So then I worked home care for several years after that with him. And then some other children. I took kids on their ventilator to school, to different events, to out in the community. So it was really it was a great pace. It was important, critical, or vital anyways. I really got comfortable with respiratory care. And so I felt really comfortable with that decision, and much happier.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that you talk about how you sort of went through that process of like, is this a failure? And I think that it's so tempting, not only as humans, but I think nurses are even harder on themselves than most people are, in my experience. And I think that it's really important when you're sort of noticing these signs of burnout. You said for you, it was, you were starting to withdraw socially. You were feeling absolutely exhausted. You felt like you were just getting by. You were short-tempered and agitated with yourself and with others. You were making errors at work. And I think not only noticing those symptoms about yourself and not ignoring the exhaustion and the irritation, like those are two really common ones that are sort of the beginning and kind of send you down that road if you don't really pay attention to like what's causing those and what am I feeling and why am I feeling that way. And then once you sort of figure out like, I don't think that this environment is the right fit for me, it's very tempting to say, well, I'm a failure. I haven't done something right. I am not good enough for this role. And I just really want to challenge those ideas, because none of those things are true. And like you said, you had multiple factors sort of playing into this. Not only were you brand new, but you were in an environment where you didn't have support and it was a very, very high acuity. And so all of those factors combined sort of played into, that feelings of burnout and heading down a different career path. And I think that it's so important that other nurses know that judging yourself in those moments harshly and calling yourself a failure and saying you weren't good enough is not helpful. It's very detrimental, and it can actually increase those feelings of burnout. So, in those moments, I really like to help people focus on what can you control. And you can certainly control the way you speak to yourself, right? You can control whether you call yourself a failure or not. And you can be more kind and supportive of yourself in making the changes that you really need to make. So I really appreciate that part of your story, and thank you so much for sharing it. And so part of your bouncing back from burnout was changing roles. What else did you do to help support yourself during that? Like, were there certain self-care practices that you had adopted, or scheduling techniques, or what really was it that helped you support yourself in getting through that?
Yeah, my number one go-to for all my stress management and my self-esteem and for my health is exercise. So I worked out a lot. I worked out every day. I changed up the workout, and then I also took on a little side job of teaching water aerobics at the same time that I was, working in home care. And then because the schedule I wasn't so burned out at the end of the day working in home care, that I was able to improve my socializing, my friendships, and not that I needed a lot of friends, but at least I did more things with friends, movies, and things like that. And again, I go back to the exercise and nutrition. Nutrition really was a big thing for me. I also was very impressed when I was young. My grandmother was ill and for most of my childhood, and she was very overweight. So that kind of always is in the back of my mind too, about keeping myself healthy, exercising. When I say exercise, I would bike 10 to 20 miles a day. I would go to the gym 3 times a week. And then I was also swimming. I started to swim laps and joined the master swimmer, which was a group of 25. Yeah, so I was, really got into exercising, and that was my number one way to cope. So.
Gotcha. I think that's also super important for people to hear, because everybody's needs are so individual. Like for you, it was biking a lot and going to the gym a lot and swimming, and really being mindful about picking those activities outside of work that supported your physical activity and your nutrition. And I mean, really, there are basic things that every human body needs in order to function. And that is movement, that is nutrition, that is sleep, and that is stress management. Everybody knows that. It is common knowledge. And for whatever reason, it's something that we have to sort of experience not taking care of ourselves and how horrible that feels, in order to remind ourselves to do those things for each other. And so I really want to share that no matter what it is for you, if it is exercise, great. If it's yoga, great. If it's swimming, great. If it's a meditation practice, that's amazing. The point is to really find those things that help you manage your stress, that help you stay active, that set you up to be able to nourish your body so that you have the fuel that you need for your day, and so that you have a healthy body working with you instead of against you. It's just really important, and just knowing that those things are different. I mean, the nutrition is basic for everybody. The stress management is basic, but what causes those things and what helps you deal with those things are different. So really give yourself permission to explore what it is that decreases stress, what foods make you feel good, what exercises or activities really fill your soul, refresh your body, allow you to sleep well at night. I mean, that's really the point. And I am so glad that you reached that point in your journey. And I have no doubt that most nurses have either an unhealthy family member or have been in touch with unhealthy patients that sort of serve as the example of the way you don't want to go.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. So if you could really say what the lessons were for you in that burnout, what would you say your biggest lessons were?
The number one is to be true to yourself.
Mm.
So I really had to, when I was assessing what my next step was going to be, I really had to go in and assess, is this what I want to continue to do? Is there any other way that I can be a nurse and still love what I do and be happy and be safe and help people? And, one of the things I learned was a professor in nursing school, and I was on the med surge floor, and I said, this is not feeling quite right. And she says, Lori, whatever you do, just finish your degree, because you can always find something in healthcare. And the nursing degree is going to position you, with that bachelor's of nursing, is going to position you in a way that you're going to have the world in your hands. So, that was really foretelling, that professor supported me. And it was always when I would come up to a place where I wasn't happy in the work situation, I was like, okay, is this a place or time that I need to shift? And, go back to, well, okay, is this my niche? Is this where I feel like I'm being fed from my job, rather than my job just taking from me? Am I getting energy from my job? Am I loving it? Or I'm just putting out so much energy, and I'm depleted at the end of the day or the end of the week. So that was the one thing that really, and because of that, evaluating everything I did, I moved around in different settings quite a bit. I mean, 2 years here, 3 years there. I didn't stay in one health system or one job for 20 years. I mean, I typically moved every 2 to 3 years with that in mind. And which brings me to where I'm at today. Is I'm a nurse health consultant. I'm independent. I have my own business. I started 4 years ago. So now I get to take everything I've learned and I get to help people on an individual basis, or I also will do presentations to different women's groups, business groups, and helping people really reclaim their health. Beyond just the healthcare system, beyond just the pharmaceutical and, their doctor visits, but looking at alternatives and looking at nutrition really is number one as the fuel for our bodies. And that's what I'm doing now as a nurse consultant. And people definitely, people are learning, people are learning from the internet, and they have a lot of questions, but they love to have a nurse supporting them, and helping them answer their questions, or helping them, sift through a lot of the information that's out there.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing.
That is beautiful. I love that advice that you were given. And you said that your instructor told you that as a nurse with a nursing degree, you really have the world in your hands. And I have goosebumps because I believe that is true. There are several nurses that I'll see like on Facebook that are suffering from burnout, and they're like, I just can't hack this profession anymore. Like, I'm looking at doing something else completely, like, getting a different degree and going a completely different direction with it because I'm so burned out. And that may be 100% true for some people. And that goes back to the comment that you made about be true to yourself. But that also may not be true. That may just be an ineffective belief that you've come up with based on how difficult the feelings of burnout are. And so really, as Lori's sort of story really demonstrates, it's really, really important to know that degree carries a lot of power, and it gives you so much autonomy. There are so many things that you can do as a nurse, and you really are never trapped. And if you are feeling burned out and unhappy, it's really time for a change probably. And to really explore those options outside of what you originally thought you would be doing as a nurse, or what you have been doing for the last, 2, 4, 10, whatever years. The point is if you're really suffering from burnout and feeling those symptoms of being withdrawn and cranky and, not showing up your best at work, it's really important for you to look into why, and to really be true to yourself, and to really know that you don't have to go back to school and completely change your major. You have a lot of power with that degree that you worked so hard for. And there are other options for you, like Lori said, to find those positions that give you as much as you give them. And I think that's also a really amazing point, Lori. And I thank you so much for sharing that. If your job is depleting you, that's probably one sign that you need to make a change, because as nurses, there's an exchange of energy. Like, we give, but we also need to receive in order to feel job satisfaction. And so really, if you're not receiving what you're putting in and you're walking away every single day consistently depleted, I think that's a really good indicator to take a hard look at what it is that you're doing, because it's not sustainable. Nothing about going and giving your soul every day and not receiving anything back is not sustainable. And that road will lead to, disease, to stress, to overeating, to obesity, to ineffective coping mechanisms, all of those things. And so it's really, really important to know that just stop yourself up front. Like, don't let yourself get to the point where you just want to throw in the towel and quit life because it's so overwhelming. Like, there are options. And we are going to be talking with Lori again, because I love, love, love that she's a health consultant now, and she's really used that experience of her career to propel her forward and to grow something beautiful and to support people in a way that keeps them healthy. And so when we come back with Lori, we will be exploring more about that, and in a Nurses Nurturing Nurses interview. And in the meantime, Lori, I usually like to end this interview with 3 to 5 things that we can sort of leave our fellow nurses with. And there are 2 things that you said that I want to start off with, and then I'll let you finish up. So the first one was to be true to yourself. And in order to really be true to yourself, it also requires you to be honest with yourself in a way that's non-judgmental. You're not judging yourself as a failure and wanting to make a change based on that. You're really looking inside and saying, what's really true for me, and what do I really need out of this experience? And then move forward from that place. And the second thing that you said was, am I receiving what I'm putting in? And I think we've talked enough about that, but that's really, really important. So what more would you have to add to those sort of tips or, words of encouragement for our fellow nurses before we wrap up?
That don't give up. And in that, if you don't feel that you're in the right place, if you're not in the place where you're feeling fulfilled, keep looking, keep trying, keep searching, keep talking to other nurses, reach out to Jessica. Reach out to nurses that have been around for a while. Go back to your professors in nursing school and have a conversation with them. And then if you do find that you are really loving what you do, then be the best of it. Be the best pediatric cardiac nurse, and you go get all the certifications, and you get and you do, you write papers, and you unite with other nurses in your same industry, and maybe you can get involved in studies, but really be the best, be amazing, and let nursing take you where you want to go. So
that is absolutely beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Lori, for your time. And I know that this story will really inspire so many other nurses. And I know that there's someone out there who just desperately needs to hear what it is that you've shared today. So all my gratitude to you for setting aside the time to come and share your story. Thank you so much. And I will look forward to interviewing you soon about your business, and then we'll share the ways in which you are moving forward and really nurturing nurses and being their support after all that you've been through. So, Lori, thank you so much and take care. I'll look forward to interviewing you again soon.
Thank you, Jessica.
You bet. See ya.
Bye-bye.